I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV and Channel 99. With us today is Sarah Oktay. I never get your name right. Sarah.
Oktay.
Oktay. I was rehearsing it this morning and I still got it wrong.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you.
Anyway, welcome, Sarah.
Thank you,
This is
Dan.
sort of a swan song, if you will.
I guess so. Yeah.
You're heading off to Colorado in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we should get together and sort of recap your time here and what you consider to be the high points and low points.
Okay, that sounds good.
And what you think your legacy to Nantucket has been.
Okay. Well,
So let's start with the high points.
Okay. Well, the high points are I'm leaving an island with probably, leaving about 1,000 friends, but an island full of people that care about the environment, care about the fuel station, care about education, and participate in town government. So the high points are I was lucky enough to be able to interact with all of these folks that really know a lot about the environment. Another high point is we're almost finished with a $600,000 upgrade to our lab. We'll have a very nice lab. We're using it now 50% of the year. We have probably 75 to 100 scientists come every year to use the lab at the Nantucket Field Station. So we've got a new facility there. We're improving our facilities in town.
Are you going to be able to get a tour of that at some point?
Yes, it'll probably be done about 2 weeks after I leave, but it's spectacular. It's really, really nice. And we have the upgraded septic system at the field station, and now we've got archaeology that we've done. We're approaching redoing the dorms, so that's the next on the list. So UMass is starting to put some real money into the field station, which is a big high point.
But for one thing.
Pardon?
You just told me there's a hiring freeze?
Yes. Well, a replacement, my number one question that people ask me is who they're hiring in place of you, and I gave them about 3 months warning so that I could interact and transition the new person in, and there is now a hiring freeze at UMass Boston across the board for all faculty and all staff. So that was the day that they released my job to have people apply for it. They shut down all hiring. So we have a couple of people interim that are going to make sure it doesn't burn down, but I'm not going to get to meet my replacement. So I'm going to have to advise them from afar. I do have a couple of long-term people at UMass that are going to help train them up and show them around, but I have no idea who it's going to be. We have a great team that is going to be the search committee, and we're including at least 1 or 2 people from Nantucket on that team. So I was able to ask UMass to do some things to make sure and keep Nantucket in mind, and that's going to be a concern for me.
What are the low points?
Oh, the low points are no matter how hard I worked, there was always more work to do. I mean, one of the reasons I'm leaving is because I couldn't work 70 hours a week, 365 the rest of my life. I've already done it for 12 years. So no matter how many times I went out in the harbor, how many kids I worked with, there was a long line of people that I wasn't able to help. We've spent a long time trying to educate people about how to clean up the harbor, and some people listen and some don't. So I would say that's a low point. Another low point that actually freed me to leave is, not getting reappointed to the Conservation Commission. I understand the idea of having a cap on how long you serve.
Term limits.
Term limits, yeah. And I understand term limits, which is fine, and actually in retrospect, I'm fine with that. But that was one thing, a lot of people think that made me look for another job, but ironically, I was actually looking for another job about a year before that happened. But, and mainly because I'm at the point in my career where I was most marketable. The head of the Organization of Biological Field Stations, operating a successful one here, and so I was getting way more job offers. But not getting reappointed to the Concom was one less string to hold me here. So I was like, okay, that's not a responsibility I have, so I can, feel a little bit better about leaving.
Can we talk about the whole Concom process a little bit?
Sure.
Is it something that, from your perspective, works? I mean, it's charged with an oversight of a very broad spectrum of activities on the island.
Yeah.
And
believe it or not, our Concom is pretty amazing. It's certainly better than almost anyone in the United States. So for all of the ways that we think they could do better, when you compare it to municipalities in other states, things are getting done willy-nilly with almost no oversight. So for any inadequacies we might perceive, we're still doing a much better job with our Conservation Commission. It's probably one of the strictest ones in the country. Our bylaws are very good. Regulations are, I wouldn't say extreme, I think they're appropriate, but we oversee a larger amount of the 100-foot zone around wetlands and oversee it well. So a lot of times people go, oh, I wish we could do more. And if you compare us to the Conservation Commission in whole, the one in almost any area in Massachusetts, we're pretty darn good, with or without me. The Conservation Commission oversees invasive plants, use of fertilizers, water quality, what you can build and not build. For example, I'm moving to Colorado, and I was just checking into my new home, which is only 10 feet from a world-renowned trout stream. And this new place, I talked to the previous owner. I said, when was the last time you pumped your septic? He's been there 30 years. He's never pumped his septic. There's no oversight in the entire county to make sure that he pumps his septic or even builds. He's got buildings on the water that would never be allowed here. So for everything we don't do well enough, we actually do it much better than people realize.
What other, I mean, what are the things that you've actually accomplished that you think are, that you are proud to be leaving behind?
Well, we're doing a lot more research. A lot more people come to the Nantucket Field Station. We're almost done with the Blue Pages, which is part of the harbor plan. I think one of the biggest accomplishments was not only writing that harbor plan, but of the 122 action items, we've implemented about 85% of them. There's almost nowhere else in the United States with a really thorough municipal harbor plan, but with one that everything was actually put into place. From the rebuilding of Brant Point, which is occurring, to removing, not allowing docks and piers by private homeowners, to not allowing gentrification of our harbor, to these fertilizer regulations that came out of the Article 68 group. That's all from the harbor plan, as is the shellfish management plan and the coastal management plan. So when I talk to other municipalities, and I do that quite a bit, and tell them about these 3 plans and how much we've implemented them, they're shocked. It's way better oversight than almost anywhere else, and it's obviously not just for me. We've had tons of people in the community that have spent countless hours sitting on these planning groups and developing thoughtful regulations.
Let's talk about the coastal management plan for a minute, because I think that's one thing that people really aren't very familiar with.
Right, I would assume so, yeah.
And so what is that intended to do, and where's it going?
Yep, so that was finished a couple of years ago, and it had members from all spectrums as far as how you would protect different properties. And what it does is it takes the entire island of Nantucket, divided into sectors, and addresses our municipal properties, whether it's at the jetties, over at off of Mattocket, anywhere where there's a municipal road or public access the town of Nantucket is responsible for. It addressed each of those properties, and it thought ahead 5, 10, 15 years as to how do we address losing that to the ocean. And so it thought ahead and said, okay, well, if this is going to go away, if Millie's Bridge goes away from a big storm, what do we do? You don't want to make that decision in the middle of a big storm. You want to be thinking about it now. Where do we shore up? How do we have extra access? What kind of coastal erosion structures do we need to put in place, if any, that would stop that or slow that? So the town thought ahead and said, let's figure out what we're going to do about our town infrastructure before it becomes an emergency. And I wish places like Miami, certainly up and down the Cape, are not, they're reacting to emergencies where they have public parking places washing into the ocean. And they're reacting in an expensive way that's often counterproductive and often doesn't solve the problem. So the nice thing about the coastal management plan, and it only addresses town and municipal properties, it doesn't address private properties, is it's trying to save taxpayer money and work proactively.
What would you like your legacy to Nantucket to be considered to be?
Oh, that's a good question. I would love this. There's a party coming up on the 16th, and people are going to come and donate money for marine science research. I would love if that was a yearly grant given to a young person where they could come and continue doing water quality research, research on the eelgrass, everything that Steve Bender was mentioning earlier. We do have a highly compromised harbor. It's, for all our hard work, it's getting worse and worse because more people are moving into the harbor water base and still using soaps and still fertilizing and still not pumping their septics. All these things we know better what not to do. I would love that there was ongoing research and that the word got out to people through something like the Blue Pages, for instance, where people understood that we're responsible for our own cleanliness, whether it's your home or yourself or your harbor. So if people would, finally start listening and reacting and cleaning up the harbor, that'd be a great legacy.
Sarah Oktay, thank you for all you've done for the island. And
Thank you,
best
Dan.
of luck to you and your new venture in Colorado.
Thank you. Appreciate it.